Oliver's former girlfriend received a cancer diagnosis. I sent her some money anonymously, but my identity was discovered. When Oliver confronted me, he threw the card at me and said, "We're already married. What more do you want? Do you intend to shame someone who's dying with money?" I remained silent, observing him calmly. "Oliver, remember you were the one who first asked me to marry you." The day we learned about Oliver's ex-girlfriend's cancer coincided with our planned anniversary trip. As I was packing, I turned to ask Oliver, should I include the dark green tie? He was frozen, gazing blankly at his phone as if disconnected from reality. "Oliver!" I called again, and he finally looked up at me. "Mia." I hesitated before continuing. "What's wrong? Mia is terminal." After saying this, he avoided my eyes and hurried out the door, moving swiftly as if every moment was crucial, fearing he might not see her again. When I reached the hospital, Oliver was already with Mia in her room. He had just finished reviewing her diagnosis, his expression somber. "When was she diagnosed?" he asked. Mia was curled up on the hospital bed, looking frail and almost translucent. "Last month during a routine checkup. The doctor said it's too late. There's no cure." Before she could add more, she noticed me at the doorway and began to cry. "I'm sorry, Serena. I didn't mean to interfere with your marriage. I'm just so scared. I'm only 24. I don't want to die." Oliver turned to see me, his face darkening with a trace of blame. "What are you doing here?" Mentioning our anniversary trip felt awkward at that moment, so I quietly addressed Mia. "I just wanted to see if I could help in any way." "No, it's unnecessary." Before Mia could respond, Oliver harshly told me to leave. Reluctantly, I glanced back as he pulled Mia into his arms, holding her tightly. Her small face rested on his shoulder, eyes closed, tears flowing. "You're all I have left," she whispered. "Oliver, I have nothing but you." He hugged her tighter, his voice rough. "I know." They seemed inseparable, deeply in love. I watched the scene, overwhelmed with emotions but unable to intervene. In the face of death, the feelings of the living often seem trivial. Oliver and I were childhood sweethearts, dating since we were 16. However, family changes forced me to move abroad, and with an uncertain return date, I ended our relationship. He was furious, accusing me of not trusting him to sustain a long-distance relationship. On my departure day, he came to the airport with teary eyes, saying, "Serena, I'll wait for you to come back. No matter how long it takes, I'll always wait." His promise helped me endure the toughest days alone, allowing me to complete a 5-year course in 3 years. But upon my return, Oliver had a new girlfriend, Mia, a junior from school. She had pursued Oliver for 2 years, dedicating herself until he reluctantly agreed to be with her. At a reunion with childhood friends, someone mentioned Mia. "She's so attached to Oliver. She follows him everywhere. If he drinks, she stays to help him sober up. If he's sick, she makes soup and cares for him." I learned she even wanted to join our gathering that day. Oliver visibly frowned and said, "Don't bring her up?" "Right, I forgot. Now that Serena's back, Oliver should probably distance himself from her," someone added. I glanced at Oliver, but he wasn't looking my way, his head down as he stared coldly at his phone. The gathering ended on a sour note. Later, Oliver offered to take me home, but the tension in his demeanor made it clear he wasn't keen. I calmly declined. "No, thank you. I didn't drink." He seemed relieved and left. Later, I discovered that day was Mia's birthday. She had been atop the Ferris wheel, holding a cake and forcing a smile for a photo. Oliver had raced through the night to reach her just before midnight. When I arrived home, my half-packed luggage was still spread out in the bedroom. I began putting my clothes back one by one. Reaching the toiletry bag, I paused. Inside was a sky blue electric shaver, slightly old, something Oliver wouldn't typically buy. It was clear who had given it to him. I stared at it for a moment before placing it in the drawer. As night fell, Oliver finally returned home. His eyes were bloodshot, the corners slightly red, and his face showed a weary, dazed expression. I approached him and said, "I've canceled the flight and the hotel." He replied. "For my parents, we can tell them that the items we promised to bring might not make it this time. We can purchase them on our next trip abroad." I calmly outlined the changes to our plans. Suddenly, Oliver became angry. He gazed deeply into my eyes. With a stern voice, he demanded, Why are you even sharing this with me? Can't you manage such a trivial matter on your own? I was momentarily paralyzed. Suddenly, memories from years past flooded my mind. It took me back to when we first began dating in high school. We attended the same school, but weren't classmates. I had some issues with the girls in my class, so I reached out to their parents to settle things. After school, the girls, still holding a grudge, cornered me in the equipment room. Raised to handle problems independently, I didn't confide in Oliver about what was happening. However, he discovered the situation and swiftly intervened, driving the girls away. Then he turned to me, frustration evident in his eyes, and said, "Why didn't you tell me when you were in trouble? I could have dealt with it myself." "But I'm your boyfriend," I replied. Back then, Oliver was a teenager, and those words hurt deeply. He began showing up at my class every night for 2 weeks, gradually breaking down my walls and encouraging me to share everything with him naturally. Now, he was the one questioning why I shared my troubles, insisting I should handle minor issues alone. It seemed Oliver sensed his emotions were spiraling, so he hesitated and softened his tone, saying, "Sorry, Serena, I'm just a bit stressed." I took a deep breath. I'm going to take a shower. When I returned from the bathroom, Oliver was gone. I searched the house and eventually found him on the upstairs terrace, smoking cigarette after cigarette. Smoking wasn't something Oliver was accustomed to. After a significant argument with Mia and their breakup, he had quickly proposed to me. On the day of his proposal, Mia was present, standing there pale and weeping. Oliver noticed her, but remained silent. That night, I found him on the balcony, smoking and gazing into the northern night sky, where a few stars shimmered faintly, the area where the city's tallest Ferris wheel stood. Just like before, I kept silent and returned to the bedroom. The next morning, I woke up with a severe headache, unsure if I had caught a cold. I searched the drawers for painkillers when Oliver suddenly burst out of the bathroom furious. "Where is my shaver?" he demanded, his face contorted with anger. My temples throbbed painfully, and before I could answer, he grabbed my wrist tightly. "Serena, where is my shaver?" "It's in the bedside drawer," I replied softly. Oliver didn't say another word as he searched for the shaver Mia had given him. I rubbed my sore wrist, took out the painkillers, and swallowed 2 pills. Mia's unexpected cancer diagnosis had completely occupied Oliver's thoughts, leaving him oblivious to my headache. To him, it was a minor issue. In the days that followed, Oliver stopped going to work, dedicating his time to contacting every top oncologist in the city. They all delivered the same grim news. Mia's cancer was terminal, and no treatment could significantly extend her life. With each confirmation, Oliver's anguish deepened. One evening, while driving home from work, I saw Oliver and Mia in the yard. Mia appeared even thinner than before, wearing a wine-red slip dress instead of her usual blue and white striped hospital gown. The golden-red sunset illuminated her pale face, giving her a warm glow. Oliver knelt before her, applying lipstick to her fragile lips. I watched this scene from my car, feeling a pang of realization that perhaps the one thing Oliver regretted most was marrying me. I stayed at a nearby bar until midnight. Finally, Oliver seemed to remember my presence in his life and called me. "Serena, where are you?" Before I could respond, the sound of a band playing filtered through the phone. Oliver paused. "I'll come get you." By the time he arrived, the band had finished their last song and left the stage. I was sitting in a corner with an untouched mojito on the table. Oliver stood before me, the dim light casting a solemn shadow on his face. "Why did you come here alone to drink?" I replied. "I didn't. I just ordered a drink and sat here listening to music." Hearing this, Oliver's expression softened slightly. He took my hand. "Let's go home." As we got into the car, the scent of disinfectant filled my nose, indicating he had remembered me only after Mia was sent back to the hospital. I asked, "How's Mia doing?" Since learning about her illness, I had kept quiet around Oliver. This was the first time I brought it up. He couldn't avoid it anymore and had to respond. "Not well. I've arranged for the best doctors to treat her, but the situation remains bleak." Realizing how it sounded, he added, "Serena, don't get me wrong. I just feel guilty for not treating her well before and want to make it up to her." That was the truth. Friends back home had told me that Oliver hadn't treated Mia well. 6 months after I went abroad, Oliver and Mia met. She was grateful for his help in resolving her problems. and that gratitude blossomed into young love. For 2 years, no matter how distant or sarcastic Oliver was, Mia remained passionately devoted to him. Eventually, he was moved by her dedication. Even during their relationship, Mia was always the one giving more. Thinking of this, I sighed deeply. Besides, she's about to die. Oliver's voice cracked slightly as he spoke. The helplessness and guilt that come with facing an unbeatable illness were feelings I knew all too well. At that moment, I felt utterly powerless. Even though Oliver is my husband and I am his legal wife, the rest of the car ride was silent. As we drove through the garden on our way home, I subconsciously paused by the swing. Oliver turned to me and asked, "What's wrong?" I shook my head. Nothing. It was so overwhelming. When I suggested accompanying Oliver to the hospital to visit Mia, his initial reaction was one of suspicion. I pretended not to notice his hesitation. "Is that not okay?" I asked. After a few seconds, Oliver finally agreed. "It's fine. Maybe because her treatment has recently improved, Mia looks much better." As we talked for a while, Mia expressed her desire to be discharged and return to work. "I know I can't be fully cured, but in the last few months of my life, I want to live as normally as possible. Is that all right?" she asked Oliver with hopeful eyes. Of course, he didn't refuse. Oliver proposed that Mia join his company in a new position. However, Mia immediately declined, shaking her head firmly. "No, that wouldn't be right. I want to secure a job based on my own abilities." Not surprisingly, Oliver turned to me and said, "I'll cover her salary. You won't need to assign her any real tasks. It won't impact you." I couldn't resist smirking sarcastically and responded, "Oliver, what exactly do you think I am?" He hesitated for a moment before sighing. "But she's ill. Yes, she is. She has cancer and isn't long for this world. We healthy people need to support her in any way possible." After a brief silence, I took a business card from my bag and handed it to him calmly. "I'll provide you with the contact information for human resources. Let her submit a resume and go through the standard interview process." Oliver didn't accept the card. Instead, he looked at me with a cold stare, as if seeing me for the first time. Serena, being so spiteful towards someone who is dying, it's frightening. Even after Oliver walked away, I remained standing there, holding on to my dignity. A young girl then approached from behind, gently tapping my shoulder. "Serena, your pants are dirty." I snapped out of my reverie and thanked her. In reality, I had been experiencing lower back pain since waking up that morning. My period had started early while I was in the hospital corridor. Oliver was so consumed with Mia that he didn't notice me purchasing sanitary pads or using the restroom. Years ago, when I had my first period at school, it was chaotic, and Oliver, then only 14, bought sanitary pads for me and tied his jacket around my waist. I had my assistant look into Mia's background. It wasn't much different from what I had imagined. Her life was tragic, lacking loving parents, and she had always lived in poverty. Oliver was the sole source of light in her life. Without his help, she might not have been able to afford her cancer treatment. Therefore, I instructed my assistant to transfer some money to Mia's account under her family's name. Refusing to hire her was the last stand I took in this marriage. Offering her money was an act of humanity, though I hadn't anticipated Oliver discovering it. That evening, upon arriving home, I turned on the lights and saw Oliver standing near the entrance, just a few steps away, staring at me blankly. Surprised, I remarked, "You're home early today?" He responded by throwing a bank card at my face, striking me near my eye. A sharp pain radiated from my temple, causing my fingers to curl in discomfort. Oliver approached, gripping my wrist tightly, his voice filled with rage. "We're married now. What more do you want? Why are you humiliating her by giving her money?" I began. "Serena, you've had a privileged and perfect family since you were young. You attended the best schools abroad, returned, and joined your family's business. I ended things with her and married you. Everything has been smooth for you, but she has nothing. Does degrading her make you feel more superior in your noble life?" I closed my eyes, memories flashing like a fragmented movie. "Oliver," I tried to keep my voice steady, but it quivered. "You can't speak to me like this. You can't." Oliver released my hand, took a step back, and seemed like he wanted to say something. However, his phone rang, displaying Mia's name on the screen. His expression shifted slightly, and without hesitation, he walked out the door. I stared at the painting on the wall, gently pressing the injured area near my eye, the pain intensifying. After that night, Oliver didn't return home for several days. He didn't reach out, but I knew it was because Mia's condition had deteriorated. She was in so much pain that she couldn't endure it, and kept crying out to Oliver. Typically, Oliver had always been there for me, no matter the situation, but he chose to prioritize Mia without hesitation. I went to a distant hospital for a comprehensive checkup. The doctor, with a serious demeanor, advised, "Miss Liu, you need to find a way to release your emotions. It would be beneficial for you." I remained silent for a long time. Thank you, but I have no one to confide in. Who could I even talk to? During those 3 years abroad, at my lowest, I fainted from a stomach hemorrhage and was taken to the hospital by a barely familiar classmate. Upon discharge, while walking down a quiet street, I was caught in a shootout, and a bullet grazed my waist. I had become accustomed to being alone, especially since Oliver and I had broken up. When I returned, he was already with Mia. I couldn't voice my thoughts. Accepting Oliver's offer was somewhat selfish because on countless nights when I could barely hold on, I thought of the boy who had waited for me at the airport with tear-filled eyes, giving me the courage to keep going. As I reminisced about the past, I slowly left the hospital. Suddenly, someone stood before me. Looking up, I saw Oliver staring at me with a cold and intimidating expression. His voice was filled with fear. "Serena, why are you at the hospital?" I froze for a moment before understanding that he feared I might be like Mia. I smiled and said, "Just a checkup." Oliver was skeptical, so I pulled the checkup report from my bag and handed it to him, keeping the one from the psychologist to myself. The report showed nothing seriously wrong with my health. Oliver's face remained tense as he carefully reviewed the document twice. He then focused on the line that read, "Old waist injury, no major issues," and asked, "What injury is this? Why have I never heard you mention it?" I paused. "Oh, it was from a shootout abroad. I got slightly injured." As we got into the car, Oliver's gaze was so cold it felt like it could freeze over. Feeling helpless, I watched the scenery pass by the window and finally spoke. "Don't worry, I know my body well. I get a checkup every year. I'm not like Sue—" "Why didn't you call me?" he interrupted abruptly, slamming on the brakes and pulling the car to the roadside. He unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned toward me. I knew he was referring to today's checkup. I looked at him calmly. It was just a routine checkup. Isn't Mia's condition unstable these days? Mentioning Mia brought a mix of emotions to his eyes, jealousy and anger. But eventually, his attention returned to me, though his voice lacked confidence. "When you were severely injured before, you should have told me, Serena. This time, I couldn't help but laugh. When I was injured," I paused slightly, "it should have been the day you were finally moved by Mia's relentless pursuit and agreed to be with her. I noticed your Weibo post while lying in my hospital bed. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 9. In the following days, asterisk, asterisk." Oliver's demeanor towards me suddenly grew noticeably warmer. Despite the exhaustion from our married life, he began waiting for me outside my workplace every evening in his car after I clocked out. For a brief period, it felt like we were teenagers again, with nothing between us but pure, intense love. I kept pondering and speculating internally until I finally expressed, "You shouldn't blame yourself. Even if you had known back then, being halfway around the world wouldn't have changed anything." Oliver's smile vanished instantly. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm not trying to make it up to you. Serena, you're my wife. We've only been married for just over a year. This is how it's supposed to be." Before I could respond, Oliver's phone, which was on the dashboard, suddenly lit up with a message from Mia. Surprisingly, he didn't reply. I inquired, "How is Mia doing?" Oliver let out a chilly laugh. "What does that have to do with me? She has plenty of people willing to care for her. She doesn't need me." If he had glanced in the rearview mirror at that moment, he would have seen his eyes burning with jealousy. I soon understood why. At the end of the month, I visited a relative in the hospital and coincidentally found Mia there as well. Passing by her room, I saw her in a hospital gown, her slender fingers repeatedly dialing a number. A young man wearing a black baseball cap stood beside her, casting a dark look at me through the doorway before gently telling Mia, "Stop calling. After all, he's married now and needs to return to his wife." "Mia, you still have me," I thought, noticing that Mia pretended not to hear him. She continued dialing Oliver's number, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Don't ignore me, Oliver. You promised you'd stay with me until the end." In that moment, I couldn't help but feel envious. My life had always followed a set path, leaving me with no choices. When I returned home, Oliver had already prepared dinner. I casually mentioned, "I saw Mia today. She seems to have lost more weight." Oliver stared at me, his expression turning serious instantly. "Why did you visit her?" His sharp gaze snapped me out of my brief, dreamlike reverie. I mocked him with a laugh. "Don't worry, I wasn't there to cause any trouble. I just happened to pass by while visiting someone else." He shook his head, avoiding my eyes. To make amends, he suggested we go out for my birthday next month. We could watch a midnight movie, attend back-to-back showings, and then go to the beach to watch the sunrise. I should have declined, but the earnestness in his eyes and the plan he proposed mirrored what we did together on my 16th birthday. Back then, I felt suffocated. And although Oliver didn't know exactly what was wrong, he was perceptive enough to realize I wasn't feeling well. So, late at night, he knocked on my window and took me out. We watched 2 movies. Asterisk A Little Thing, called Love Asterisk and Asterisk Roman Holiday Asterisk. By the time the films ended, the sky was lightening, and Oliver rode his bike along the coastal highway, eventually stopping at the edge of a cliff where the golden sun slowly emerged from the sea. He confessed his feelings to me, but that was ages ago. Now he had to recreate those memories to piece together the fragmented details. I agreed and said yes, just like that night when we were 16. I couldn't rekindle the feelings we once had, no matter how many movies we watched together. It felt like whenever I was with Oliver, I kept reminiscing about the past. This indicated that the current version of him couldn't balance my love and disappointment. I was simply unwilling to let go, still holding on to those moments when he supported me and prevented me from falling apart. Once I realized this, I focused my attention on Oliver beside me. He wasn't watching the movie either. Instead, he seemed restless. Occasionally, he would take out his phone, glance at it, and then hide it as if it had hurt him. I quietly reminded him, "It's vibrating. Someone's calling you." Oliver forced a smile. "Don't worry about it. Today, I'm here to celebrate your birthday." Pathetic and laughable, I actually believed him. After the movie concluded, Oliver finally answered Mia's 28th call. On the other end, I heard her desperate sobbing, "Oliver, being sick is so hard. I vomited so much blood. Am I going to die, Oliver?" As I watched him, Oliver calmly put his phone away, leaned down, and kissed my cheek. "I'm going to the restroom." And then he never returned. I waited for a long time outside that secluded private theater by the sea. Eventually I called Oliver, but his phone was turned off. After hanging up, I noticed Mia had sent me a friend request on WeChat. I accepted it, and she quickly sent several messages. "I'm sorry, Serena. I know today is your birthday. I wanted to prove how important I am to him. You're Oliver's white moonlight. No matter how well I treat him, I can't take your place in his heart. But now I'm sick and dying. Let me be selfish just once and be a vile woman. White moonlight, white moonlight." That phrase is revolting. I could sense a fierce emotion building up inside me. Before I could react, a hand abruptly seized me, yanking me into a nearby alley with immense strength. I toppled to the ground in my dress, my knees and elbows scraping the gritty pavement and walls, sending intense waves of pain through my body. Looking up, I encountered a pair of dark, frenzied eyes. They felt both familiar and unfamiliar. It was the young man in black from Mia's hospital room. "You're Oliver's wife. Who do you think you are, upsetting Mia?" he demanded. "She battles cancer day and night, and you're not just the cheerful little princess. You also have to take away the man she loves, making her final days even more unbearable." He tugged the brim of his baseball cap lower, glaring at me harshly. "Make it hurt as much as you can, but don't let her lose consciousness." The sky began to brighten gradually as dawn approached. Behind the young man, a tall, intimidating figure stepped forward, halting in front of me as dust swirled around. Why does everyone believe Mia deserves sympathy when I'm the one who has lost everything? Those scattered memories flashed through my mind once more, this time with a bit more clarity. I was 6 years old when my mother was unexpectedly diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer. Even after undergoing a complete mastectomy, the cancer had continued to spread. As she lay in bed, her strength diminishing each day, someone visited our home. It was my aunt, my mother's twin sister who resembled her about 80%. She naturally took my mother's place, assuming all her former responsibilities. My father didn't object, understanding that both families needed to remain connected. At 6, I was too young to grasp why I had to call my aunt Mom, or why, after just a month with us, I had a new half-sister. I only recall that on the day my mother died, she tightly held my hand and said, "Serena, you must live well. Live healthily." That sentence became my burden. Every time Mia expressed that she didn't want to die, a feeling of absurdity surged within me. Those who wish to live fully and be loved are the ones afflicted by terminal illness. Meanwhile, those who wish to die must continue living, bearing their guilt. At home, my responsibilities as the eldest daughter of the Liu family limited what I could do, whereas my younger sister could act out and do as she pleased. When my relationship with Oliver became known, my father sent my aunt to speak with me. She wore my mother's chi pao and pearl necklace, looking at me with both contempt and pity. "You can date, sure, but don't give away your virginity or you'll lose your value. Serena, you're the older sister. You wouldn't want your younger sister to bear your responsibilities, would you?" When I turned 20, she presented me with 2 options. Marry one of my father's business partners, who was 20 years my senior, someone my father couldn't easily influence, or study business abroad, return, marry, and help manage the company. I chose the second path. Shortly after my return, they began assessing potential marriage partners to strengthen the Liu family's interests. Their method was logical, clear-headed, and meticulous, though they never sought my input. Fortunately, Oliver proposed to me and I accepted, believing he could continue to support me as he had for years, preventing me from falling into despair. But by then, Mia was already by his side. When my dress was shredded beyond recognition, I finally grabbed the discarded stiletto heel. I lifted it and swung it down forcefully. Warm blood splattered my face as the man collapsed, his body going limp. Holding the blood-stained heel, I leaned against the wall and slowly stood up. A few steps away, the young man noticed the disturbance and turned to face me. A dark shadow loomed in his eyes. "You've got some fight." I took 2 deep breaths and responded, "It's always been your beloved Mia who wronged me. No matter how much you adore her, her heart belongs only to Oliver. Even if he's married or she's dying, she will never think of you." "Shut up," he yelled, charging at me in anger and slapping my face. If you hadn't accepted Oliver's proposal, they would have reconciled after their fight, and she would have been happy with him. My cheek burned with pain, but I tilted my head back and smiled serenely. Why shouldn't I have accepted it? If Mia had fought with Oliver and then wanted to marry you, would you have turned her down? She's dying. No matter how much you care, you can't cure her cancer, so you take your anger out on someone innocent like me. I paused, then softly added, "Pathetic. If you truly love her, you should die with her." At that moment, I remembered what the doctor had told me with a serious expression. "Miss Liu, you need to find a way to release your emotions. It will do you good." He was right. The young man stared at me in disbelief. After a while, he let out a heart-wrenching wail, slumped against the wall, and curled up on the ground, crying miserably. I stood there watching, feeling somewhat bewildered. These people always believe they are the most pitiable in the world. Mia, Oliver, and him, they're all the same. I barely managed to straighten my torn dress and walked out of the alley as the first rays of sunrise appeared on the distant horizon. Gradually, the light illuminated the formerly dark sky. It was a beautiful sight. It no longer mattered whether Oliver was there to witness it with me. I hailed a cab and went to the police station, handed over the blood-stained stiletto, and asked the officer if this would be considered self-defense. The young female officer looked at me with clear eyes full of pity. "Miss Liu, don't worry. The marks on your body indicate it was an attempted rape. But are you okay?" I replied that I was fine. It might hurt a little, but I could handle the wounds myself. "Do you need me to contact your family to pick you up?" "Who could I contact?" I lowered my eyes and smiled. "No need. Everyone in my family is busy with their own lives." After completing my statement, I went home, found the divorce papers I had prepared long ago, signed them, and sent them to Oliver's company. Throughout the entire process, Oliver never reached out to me once. However, I noticed from Mia's social media that he had taken her to Yunnan. The reason, of course, was the same as always. She was dying. It was her last wish. She sat on a swing, and Oliver pushed her high into the air, her pristine dress billowing in the wind. She said, "Oliver, when I die, bury my ashes here. I want to be a free spirit. If you ever think of me, come here and enjoy the view." How romantic. Even in death, she wanted to leave a profound impression to ensure Oliver would remember her forever. After reading that post, I coldly deleted Mia from my contacts. I had already guessed Oliver's thoughts. His silence was a form of self-deception. He was convinced that by simply avoiding any conversation with me, he could discreetly be by Mia's side until her final moments and then come back to me as if nothing had changed, allowing us to carry on as before. However, that was a fantasy. I decided to visit someone, a mutual friend shared by both Oliver and me named Luke. Due to my introverted nature, I hadn't formed many friendships during my upbringing, and Luke was barely considered one. "I'm leaving." He took a drag from his cigarette, standing abruptly in surprise. "No way, you have cancer too?" I laughed softly. "Absolutely not. I'm just choosing to leave this place and move to another city." "What about the Liu family business and its legacy?" he inquired. "I'm abandoning it," I responded calmly, adding, "I never intended to take it on from the start." Everyone was aware of Oliver's complicated relationship with his terminally ill ex-girlfriend, and they often mocked me behind my back. When I informed my family about the divorce, my aunt gently reassured me, saying, "It's okay. In families like ours, even a second marriage holds value." I smiled and replied, "I have no value left, so don't rely on that. The Liu family business is yours now. The items you've always desired from my mother, they're already yours." I stated, "If you want to avoid the scandal of forcing the eldest Liu daughter into a tragic end, then let me go." For the first time, her usually soft and gentle eyes showed hatred. As if out of spite, she whispered, "It's not your fault, Serena. Your husband prefers being with a dying woman. You're truly pitiable." Her love and expectations for Oliver had completely faded, rendering her words powerless to hurt me. I told Luke, "If Oliver asks, don't tell him where I went. Serena, you have everything. Oliver, I have nothing left but this body." According to Luke, just a few days after I left, Oliver returned alone without Mia. It seemed she hadn't survived, but at least she died fulfilling her final wish between the mountains and the sea. Oliver called me numerous times, but I didn't answer. Eventually he texted, "What's going on? Are you divorcing me, Serena?" I chose not to respond. There was no need. Luke informed me that Oliver became like a caged, restless beast, searching everywhere for me, even visiting the Liu family. When he barged into my home, my father and aunt were debating whether to force me to return and marry a wealthy, powerful widower in his 50s. "Serena, you should have seen Oliver's reaction," Luke marveled over the phone. "Did you report the incident?" "The police sent a notice to your house and said they couldn't reach you, but the 2 suspects in the attempted rape case have been apprehended." Luke kept me informed about other developments. Oliver went to the police station seeking details about that day. Perhaps out of sympathy, the female officer shared everything with him. Then, Oliver broke down, collapsing on the sidewalk outside the station, sobbing uncontrollably. Luke was there, watching as Oliver looked up with tear-streaked red eyes and asked, "Do you know where Serena went?" "I have no idea." Luke shrugged helplessly. "You know Serena. Her heart's been cold. None of us are close to her. She only ever cared about you." This seemed to demyastate Oliver completely. He began obsessively digging into everything I had experienced over the years, especially what transpired during those 3 years abroad. Every detail he uncovered seemed to shatter him further. I imagine he deeply regretted the things he had said to me, But the past couldn't be undone. Hearing about Oliver's anguish didn't bring me any satisfaction, only immense indifference. Whether I was experiencing those events or recalling them now, I couldn't feel much. All my life, I felt like a walking corpse, only animated by Oliver, who had once given me a flicker of hope in my stagnant existence. But even that hope was now gone. One day, Luke mentioned that our old high school was hosting an anniversary celebration and inviting distinguished alumni. Both Oliver and I received invitations sent to Oliver's address. He returned to visit the teachers, and the former headmaster nostalgically remarked, "All these years, you and Serena have stayed together and even married. How rare. Not many young couples last that long." Oliver stood there motionless, listening as the headmaster reminisced about the past, details he had long buried in his memory. He must have remembered how deeply he loved you at 17 or 18, even after we all got drunk following the college entrance exams. Walking down the street, he kept muttering about how he was going to marry Serena one day. Luke paused. So, as we left the school, I told him to stop pretending. Serena was abroad for 3 years, and you never even considered visiting her. You were too busy with Mia. Besides, she's already given up on you now. Oliver is an exceptionally intelligent man. From that single sentence, he realized I was still in contact with Luke and managed to obtain my address from him. That afternoon, as I returned from the hospital with a bag of medications, I saw Oliver standing at my door. The moment he saw me, his eyes turned red. "Serena." "Serena? You're sick too, aren't you?" he asked. "No, I'm perfectly healthy," I replied coldly. "It's just some medication for psychological and mental health issues. I've been taking them for many years now, but it's not life-threatening, at least not like cancer, which is incurable." With that, I brushed past him and headed toward the courtyard, but Oliver grabbed the hem of my clothes, pleading, "Serena, I don't want to divorce you." I found it absurd because my love for him hadn't vanished overnight. It had gradually eroded as he chose Mia over time. Now that Mia was gone, he returned to me. What was the point? So I calmly suggested, "Actually, if you couldn't let go of Mia, you could have left with her." "I don't miss her," he responded. Raising his voice, his tone softened again. "I told you from the beginning, Mia had cancer and was dying. I just felt guilty and wanted to accompany her on her final journey." And I've lost count of how many times Oliver mentioned Mia's illness in front of me. It was as if her cancer required the entire world to bend to her needs unconditionally. Facing death demanded everything to yield. So finally, I laughed. What's so special about that? It's just cancer, just dying, isn't it? She's not the only one who's ever gone through that. Over the years, I've slit my wrists, inhaled charcoal fumes, and taken pills several times. It's just that each time, I was saved. When she cried in front of you saying she didn't have long to live, I was actually envious of her. I envied her ability to die without restraint. If I could, I would have traded places with her. Let me die and let her live so she could be happy with you. Everyone would receive exactly what they desired. Wouldn't that be preferable? Oliver gazed at me in astonishment, his eyes resembling two vast, endless depths now brimming with sorrow and anguish. "Serena, I wasn't aware. If I had known..." Oliver was unable to complete his thought. He simply couldn't add anything more. It was evident that he was the one who had erred, the one who had caused me pain. Yet here he stood, weeping so pitifully before me, as though I had somehow wronged him. Even at this moment, I felt little emotion. "Oliver, people evolve. They're capable of change. So even though you vowed at 20 to wait for me, you altered your decision at 21. I never held that against you. I genuinely loved you so deeply that throughout all these years, you were the sole person who could move me emotionally. Even when you abandoned me and swiftly turned to Mia, I was able to let it go. But that love you had gradually eroded with your own hands. Whether it was you, Mia, or that crazy person infatuated with Mia, you all caused me pain for the same reason, because I had everything, lived a joyful life, while you all were trapped in impossible situations, unable to love, always missing something. But now I've relinquished everything. I have nothing remaining. Can you finally release me?" Oliver ultimately vanished from my life. Occasionally, I would catch snippets of news about him from Luke. For instance, the two suspects in the assault case suddenly died in prison, or how the Zhao family abruptly started mercilessly crushing the Liu family's business, even accepting orders at unreasonable prices just to undercut them. Eventually, the Liu family went bankrupt, and the Zhao family was also significantly weakened. The pure golden chains that had bound me for over 2 decades finally broke and dissolved. When I heard the news, I was briefly stunned before heading to a nearby convenience store to purchase some alcohol. Having had my stomach pumped multiple times, mine had always been sensitive, unable to handle alcohol well. Whenever I visited a bar, I would simply order a drink and leave it untouched. However, rare moments like these felt deserving of a little celebration. I took a few sips, felt a slight ache in my stomach, and set the can aside. That's when my phone rang. I answered it. It was Oliver. His voice had a touch of inebriation. "Serena, I've avenged you." For a split second, his voice transported me back to when I was 14. I had been bullied, and he had defended me. In the end, he returned to me, his face bruised, saying, "I won, Serena. I stood up for you." That marked the beginning of my feelings for him, but I quickly returned to the present. "I'm hanging up." Oliver panicked, pleaded, "Don't—" "Serena, I just want to hear a few more words from you." I offered a faint smile. "Have you seen Mia lately?" Oliver didn't respond, but his breathing on the other end of the line grew rapid, filled with deep-seated fear. "I forgot to tell you. The night you left me to go to Mia, she added me on WeChat. So every stop you made on your trip, every little thing you did, I knew it all. Oliver, I understand everything you've done for me, but I won't feel any gratitude towards you. You don't deserve it." The night breeze mingled with the soft moonlight gently wafted by. After a long, prolonged silence, Oliver's voice finally emerged again, hoarse and choking with sobs. "Yes, I don't deserve it. Serena, everything is my fault. I'm the one who deserves to suffer. I beg you, please live well." I remained silent and simply ended the call. A few days earlier, I had gone to the hospital for a follow-up. The doctor mentioned that my emotional state had significantly improved. Perhaps escaping the heavy burdens of the past had given me a bit more courage to continue. It had also been a long time since I dreamed about my teenage self and Oliver. I threw the beer can into the trash and left the balcony. Tonight, I would go to bed early. Tomorrow, I'd visit the beach to watch the sunrise.